Welcome to All in Togo. Today we're diving into the Congo Act of 1885 and exploring its fascinating connection to the 1914 forgotten frontline war in Togoland. A story you won't want to miss. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like and share this video. This year we're on a mission to set the record straight and reclaim Africa's true history and image, and we want you to be part of this transformative journey. Let's get started. History often remembers grand theatres of war and diplomacy, yet the seemingly small events are no less impactful. To put things into context for everyone to understand, let's go back what set the stage for colonization of Africa, the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference, held from November 15, 1884 to February 26, 1885, was a pivotal moment in world history. Convened by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, the conference brought together representatives from 14 nations. Participants included Germany, Britain, France, Portugal, Belgium, Austria, Hungary, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Russia, Turkey and the United States. Their goal? To establish a framework for colonizing Africa without triggering open conflict among European powers. The Congo Act, part of the Treaty of Berlin in 1885, established principles to regulate colonial expansion and ensure neutrality in the Congo Basin. It set the stage for colonial neutrality and free trade in Africa. But in 1914, Togoland, a German colony, became the first battlefield of World War I in Africa. This is the story of strategy, sacrifice, and the forgotten front line of Togoland. The Congo Act, part of the Treaty of Berlin in 1885, established principles to regulate colonial expansion and ensure neutrality in the Congo Basin. Article 10 states, in order to give a new guarantee of security to trade and industry and to encourage by the maintenance of peace the development of civilization in the countries mentioned in Article 1 and placed under the free trade system the high signatory parties to the present Act, and those who shall hereafter adopt it bind themselves to respect the neutrality of the territories or portions of territories belonging to the said countries, comprising therein the territorial waters, so long as the powers which exercise or shall exercise the rights of sovereignty or protectorate over those territories, using their option of proclaiming themselves neutral, shall fulfill the duties which neutrality requires. This Article 10, in summary, guaranteed free trade in the region even during war. Article 11 states, in case a power exercising rights of sovereignty or protectorate in the countries mentioned in Article 1 and placed under the free trade system shall be involved in a war, then the high signatory parties to the present Act and those who shall hereafter adopt it bind themselves to lend their good offices in order that the territories belonging to this power and comprised in the conventional free trade zone shall, by the common consent of this power and of the other belligerent or belligerents, be placed during the war under the rule of neutrality and considered as belonging to a non-belligerent state, the belligerents thenceforth abstaining from extending hostilities to the territories thus neutralized, and from using them as a base for warlike operations. In summary, Article 11 declared the Congo Basin a neutral zone, prohibiting military operations. But these ideals crumbled under colonial realities. Let's pause here for a moment and see what truly happened in the Congo Basin. The Berlin Conference of 1884-1885, convened to divide Africa among European powers, remains infamous for one of its most controversial outcomes, the recognition of King Leopold II of Belgium's claim to the Congo Basin. Leopold presented his proposal as a philanthropic venture, pledging to bring civilization, free trade and the abolition of slavery to the region. However, what followed was a harrowing chapter of exploitation and human suffering, making Leopold one of history's most brutal colonial rulers. Leopold's interest in the Congo began with Sir Henry Morton Stanley's exploration of the Congo River between 1874 and 1879. Using Stanley's work as a foundation, Leopold formed the Association Internationale du Congo in 1879. Through this organization, he secured treaties with over 450 African leaders. often through deceit, granting him rights to their land. In 1884, at the Berlin Conference, Leopold successfully lobbied for private ownership of the Congo Free State, a vast territory about 1/3 the size of the United States. This unprecedented recognition of private rule over an African colony came with a promise to uphold the principles of the Congo Act, promoting free trade, combating slavery, and improving the lives of the indigenous population. These lofty promises, however, masked Leopold's true intentions. Under Leopold's rule, the Congo Free State became synonymous with brutal exploitation. His administration imposed a system of forced labor to extract rubber, ivory, and other resources. A colonial army, led by European officers, used extreme violence to enforce quotas, with one of the most notorious punishments being the amputation of hands. Men, women, and even children were mutilated as a means of terror and control. The very principles of the Congo Act, free trade, and the abolition of slavery were flagrantly violated. Instead of fostering economic development and human dignity, Leopold's Congo Free State turned into a site of systemic violence. The human cost of Leopold's regime was staggering. It is estimated that as many as 10 million Congolese people lost their lives due to forced labor, starvation, disease, and violent punishment. Villages were razed, families torn apart, and countless lives were destroyed in the pursuit of profit. The image of severed hands became a chilling symbol of the era's cruelty. As reports of atrocities in the Congo Free State spread, global condemnation grew. In 1890, African-American historian George Washington Williams wrote an open letter exposing the suffering of the Congolese people. Polish-British novelist Joseph Conrad later chronicled these horrors in his novel Heart of Darkness, which was first published in serialized form in Blackwood's magazine in 1899 and then became a best-selling novel in 1902. His accounts of the suffering of the Congolese people under the brutal oppression of King Leopold II was a poignant critique of imperialism. British journalist Edmund Dean Morel launched a relentless campaign against Leopold, using photographs, eyewitness accounts, and missionary reports to raise awareness. His efforts led to the formation of the Congo Reform Association in 1904, intensifying pressure on Leopold. By 1908, facing mounting international criticism, Leopold was forced to relinquish control of the Congo Free State. The territory was transferred to the Belgian government and renamed the Belgian Congo. While the direct brutality subsided, colonial exploitation persisted until Congo gained its independence in 1960. King Leopold II died in 1909, leaving behind a legacy of greed and inhumanity. While celebrated in Belgium as a great monarch, history views him as one of the most notorious colonial oppressors. His promises at the Berlin Conference of Philanthropy and Progress were exposed as a facade, making his regime a symbol of the devastating impact of imperialism. The Congo Free State serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of unchecked power and greed. Today, the Democratic Republic of the Congo still grapples with the lasting scars of this dark chapter in its history. By recounting these events, we honor the millions who suffered and ensure that the lessons of the past are not forgotten. Now let's move on to Togoland and show you how imperialists will stop at nothing to achieve their aim in Africa. Africa without the Africans. Here again in Togoland, the Congo Act's lofty promises were overshadowed by imperial greed. Togoland's significance lay in its Kamina wireless station, a key communication link between Berlin German colonies and naval forces. And again here, let's put things into context. In August 1914, Germany held 4 territories in Africa. German East Africa, German Southwest Africa, and the Cameroons were large, but the 4th territory, Togoland, was a small oblong-shaped possession on the Gulf of Guinea that had the approximate landmass of Ireland. Its width averaged 120 miles and its length 410 miles. To the west of Togoland lay the British Gold Coast. To the east lay French Dahomey, and to the north was French Upper Senegal and Niger. The coastal belt contained lagoons and marshes, and in the interior a range of mountains ran from the northeast down to the southwest. Most of the land either side of the range supported palm oil plantations, native cultivations, virgin forest, and where this had been burned down, high grass and thick scrub. Away from the mountains, August was usually a rainless month. The temperature in the shade hovered around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the high level of humidity sapped strength from men and women who worked, particularly if they were European. By effective management, the Germans had made Togoland into a successful colony that paid all its own costs. 3 short railway lines had been laid from the capital and chief port of Lomé going northwest, east and north. The northern line terminated just past Kamina, approximately 110 miles from Lomé. At Kamina, the construction of a high-power 9-mast wireless station had just been completed in July 1914. In the words of the governor of the Gold Coast, Sir Hugh Clifford, this station was destined to be the pivotal point of the German worldwide wireless system, designed to communicate with Berlin on the one hand, with Windhoek in German Southwest Africa, and with Dar es Salaam on the east coast with the other. The station could also communicate easily with the Cameroons and with German ships in the Atlantic Ocean. In Togoland, there were no German army Schutztruppe units, but there were believed to be 800 armed police and 200 or more German civilians who had received some military training. In the Gold Coast and Togoland, August 1914 coincided with the holiday season. As the governor of Togoland, Duke Adolf Friedrich zu Mecklenburg, was on leave in Germany, the military commander and acting governor was Major von Doering. In the Gold Coast, both the governor and the commandant of the Gold Coast Regiment were also on leave in the UK, leaving acting governor W.C.F. Robertson and Captain F.C. Bryant Royal Artillery in charge. Remember when I said the imperialists will stop at nothing to achieve their aim in Africa? Now watch and listen to this. Based on the Congo Acts, Africa was guaranteed to be a war-free zone despite what was happening in Europe in 1914. But this is what happened in West Africa. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Congo Act's principles of neutrality were put to the test. Togoland, a German colony in West Africa, became a critical focus due to its Kamina wireless station, which linked Berlin to Germany's global empire. Captain Bryant was in charge of the Gold Coast Regiment, part of the West African Frontier Force, a disciplined unit but which lacked logistical support for operations outside the Gold Coast. However, soon after the start of World War I, he received orders from London to start preparing for war against the Germans in Togoland and immediately acted decisively. He started deploying the Gold Coast Regiment and mobilizing its reservists in accordance with the Territory Defence Plan that envisaged attacks upon the Gold Coast by German troops from Togoland. Meanwhile, in London, the Inspector General of the West African Frontier Force, WAF, Brigadier General C.M. Dobell, as a member of the interestingly titled Offensive Subcommittee of the Committee of Imperial Defence, submitted a proposal accepted by the subcommittee stating that the GCR should immediately invade Togoland, capture Lomé and advance north to capture Kamina. On the ground, Bryant was of a similar opinion and was making the necessary plans. At this stage, the British were working on the assumption that French troops would not be involved in any operations in Togoland. On the 5th of August, the British and the French received a telegram from Major von Doering, the acting German governor, requesting that the colonial territories remain neutral and not involve themselves in the European war. He invoked the Congo Act, namely Article 10 and 11. Togoland should remain untouched by the war. But this was no selfless gesture. The Kamina station was a linchpin in German military strategy, and its continued operation posed a significant threat to Allied forces. His proposal was seen by the British and French as a ploy to protect the Kamina station. Togoland's strategic importance outweighed legal interpretations of neutrality, and so they quickly dismissed the proposal. Instead, the following day, and acting purely on his own initiative, Bryant sent his company commander at Ada, Captain E. Barker, overland under a flag of truce to Lomé, with an ultimatum that von Doering surrender his colony. A reply was to be made within 24 hours, during which neither side would move troops towards the frontier. After delivering his request, Barker, who was accompanied by a fluent German-speaking district commissioner, Mr. H.S. Newlands, returned to Gold Coast territory. British wireless intercepts now learned that von Düring intended to evacuate Loma and move north to defend Kamina. London, trying hard to catch up with Bryant's initiative, ordered that if Lome was surrendered, it must be immediately occupied as a base for an advance on Kamina. Barker started his troops marching eastwards on the coast towards Togoland on the 7th of August and returned ahead of them in a lorry to Lome for the German answer. He found von Düring and his troops gone. The local district commissioner, Mr. Klausnitzer, surrendered Lome and around 100 German civilians to Barker. Klausnitzer stated that the surrender of the capital was being made to avoid British naval bombardment, but if the British advanced more than 75 miles into the interior, then the Germans would resist them. Barker and Newlands and their single police orderly spent a lonely night in a Lome bungalow. The next morning, a Gold Coast telegraph operator arrived at Lome on a bicycle with an instrument and appropriate spares, allowing him to repair the disabled German telegraph facility and establish communications with the Gold Coast. Back in Accra, the British had heard from London that the French had agreed to cooperate and were moving regular troops into southern Togoland from Dahomey to the east, whilst irregular mounted troops were moving into the German colony from the north. Barker's soldiers force-marched across the border to Lome on the 9th of August, followed by other GCR companies, and a group of Gold Coast officials arrived by sea from Accra and set about restoring sanitation, communications and port facilities in the capital and providing medical services for the troops. When Sir Hugh Clifford returned to Accra to resume his governorship, he found considerable disarray within the Gold Coast administration because of the absence in Togoland of his key officials. Bryant was made a local lieutenant colonel and appointed Allied commander. By the 12th of August, he was established in Loma with a force of over 550 officers, British non-commissioned officers, NCOs, and men of the GCR, 3 2.95-inch guns, 4 machine guns, 50 Gold Coast police, 34 Gold Coast civil officials and volunteers, and 2,000 carriers and labourers. The Germans, retreating north, demolished railway bridges to slow the Allied advance. On August 15th, German forces launched counterattacks using 2 armed trains. British troops blocked the line, capturing one train after fierce fighting and derailing another. Captain H.B. Potter led a successful assault at Egbeluvo, while Lieutenant H.S. Collins derailed a train at Ikuni. 6 Germans were killed, including their commander, Captain Failer, while British casualties totaled 7 killed and 38 wounded. Many British carriers suffered devastating injuries from soft-nosed hunting ammunition, later acknowledged by von Düring. By mid-August, the Allies were closing in on Kamina from all sides. French troops from Dahomey joined the campaign, with Captain Castaing leading 150 Senegalese tirailleurs. On August 19th, a larger French column advanced eastward, while British forces moved north from Ketakraki. Von Düring, cornered but resolute, chose a strong defensive position near Kamina. However, the combined pressure of British and French forces was overwhelming. By August 25th, German troops destroyed the Kamina station to prevent its capture and surrendered soon after. Togoland became the first German colony to fall in World War I. The Anglo-French victory in Togoland marked the first Allied success of World War I. It showcased the strategic importance of Africa in global conflicts and the critical role played by colonial troops. The sacrifices of individuals like George Masterman Thompson, the first British officer killed in the war, and Sergeant Asuri Moshi of the Gold Coast Regiment exemplify the human cost of this campaign. Today their legacy is preserved in memorials, reminding us of Africa's profound contribution to shaping world history. Though Major von Düring's invocation of the Congo Act failed, it highlighted the ambiguity of its principles when faced with global conflict. Togoland's partition between Britain and France after the war marked the beginning of its journey toward independence. The sacrifices of African soldiers and carriers in the campaign remain a powerful reminder of the continent's role in shaping global history. From the Congo Basin's exploitation to Togoland's liberation, these stories reveal the resilience of African peoples amidst imperial strife. As we reflect on these intertwined histories, let us honor the sacrifices made and strive to understand the lessons they offer. The Congo Act and the Togoland campaign remind us that the struggles of the past are deeply woven into the fabric of our shared humanity. Togoland's story is one of strategy, resilience, and sacrifice. From the lofty ideals of the Congo Act to the gritty realities of war, this forgotten frontline reminds us that history's smallest theaters often carry the greatest significance. Before you go, if you enjoyed this deep dive into history from All in Togo, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Like if you found it insightful and share it with friends and family, because together we can uncover the past and learn for the future. Drop a comment below to share your thoughts, questions, or even suggestions.